Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's NBA Sharp Betting Breakdown here on the Advantage Sports Betting Podcast. I am your host, Michael Fiddle. Today is Wednesday, April 9th. We have a 10-game NBA slate to cruise through, going over every line movement, sharp side, best bet, where these lines opened, where my action is, where we expect them to move, and what is still playable live right now on the card. We will go through all of that. But before we get started, few content announcements and some exciting news. First, last night I recorded the Masters preview with golf expert Mike LaFemina. That is already available on the Advantage Sports Betting podcast feed. It is an audio-only episode. Little bit of an incentive for you guys to make sure you're also subscribed on the podcast feed as a backup. You can find that anywhere where you get podcasts. The reason why we had to do it audio only is they had a bunch of technical issues throughout the show, so I appreciate Mike for bearing with me, sticking through. I ended up having a really, really good Masters show, so I highly encourage everybody check that out if you are a golf fan and if you are planning on betting the Masters tournament at Augusta, Georgia this coming weekend, starting tomorrow morning at this point. Tomorrow on the show here, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Raheem Palmer of the Ringer Gambling Show will be with me breaking down the 5-game slate. Thought it was a really nice time to bring Raheem in. Good friend of mine in the space. Happy to have him on the pod. I've invited him on the pod plenty of times, but he was very locked into football, very locked into the college stuff. He's finally fully focused on basketball, and we're getting Raheem in the building. So Raheem Palmer on tomorrow. Just me again on Friday. And then you will also have me on Sunday because it is the last day of the NBA regular season on Sunday. So I will be going live at 12 p.m. I believe the game started 12. The game started at 1 p.m. The game started at 1 p.m. Eastern. I will be going live at 12 p.m. Eastern, going over all of the games. And we'll be joined by J Money is Money right here on The Advantage. So some bangers coming up. A golf episode with Mike LaFemina, Raheem Palmer of The Ringer joining me on Thursday, J Money joining me on Sunday. Let's finish the year really fucking strong, which starts off with dominating this Wednesday, April 9th card. A bunch of games to go through. We have all of the latest injury updates. Here are the odds at FanDuel to work through the slate. Of course, if there are better numbers elsewhere, I will happily point them out. If there are any questions, drop them in the chat. Any bets that you're on, any props that you are looking on, drop them in the chat. Let's go, says Christopher. Starts with the 76ers at the Wizards. And we move on to game 2 because no one gives a fuck about that. It goes to Boston versus Orlando. By the way, it's been a very flat market too. Boston takes on the Orlando Magic. In Orlando, a spread at Magic -6, a total at 206.5. Ask yourself if you know where these lines opened. Way different than they are currently. Total opened up at 215.5 at both DraftKings and Caesars. The Advantage released in the WHOP a 2-unit play towards the under on this Celtics Magic game. And then they went to overtime. The Celtics last night on the second leg of a back-to-back. The Magic are on the second leg of a back-to-back after beating the Hawks as well last night. But the Celtics go to overtime, which then brings in that next wrinkle that you always do when you see a team go to overtime. Look towards fading the total, probably more under movement if star players are more likely to rest, and situationally fade the team that is going to be playing in that back-to-back spot. Now, I wish I had did that with authority. The strategy would have definitely worked, seeing the numbers this morning all the way down to 206.5 and a spread at Magic -6 across the board. Holy shit. This line opened up Boston -3. 9 points of middling on the spread. 9 points of middling on the total. If you executed the strategies of watch a team go to overtime and fade them instantly. I remember the board moving when they went to overtime. and Celtics would go to overtime after that Jason Tatum. Got you. Jay Tatum. That was a ridiculous shot. When that game would go to overtime, there was still a lot of uncertainty of like, okay, maybe one of Jaylen Brown or Jason still plays tomorrow. Maybe Horford goes, but Porzingis sits, and we're still doing all of the normal Boston way that they've handled the back-to-backs, but we need to layer on that it becomes a completely meaningless game for Boston, especially after beating the Knicks last night. Especially meaningless game. So you factor in that portion once they've already secured the win in overtime. Harder to cap those angles. A lot of the lines locked and whatever. Totally forgot to touch on the Michael Malone situation. Holy shit, how'd I forget? No, let's abruptly pause the show and talk some Denver Nuggets. Or do we just weave it in when we're doing the Denver Nuggets situation in a bit? That seems appropriate. I have a beautiful theory. Stay tuned. I have a theory of why these firings happen now, and I think I'm fucking correct. The Charlotte Hornets are taking on the Toronto Raptors. Another meaningless game, but just heavy movement towards the Raptors. Just a much better team, even in tanking efforts. So, seeing this line open at FanDuel, 8.5, open everywhere else, 7.5. Charlotte's actually been half decent at covering spreads as of late, but Toronto, one of the strongest teams ATS all year. We often find ourselves wanting to back Toronto as long underdogs when they're +9 in these spots, road or home. Seeing them as a -7.5, -8, now up to -9. I understand Toronto being the sharp side. I understand this being a one-directional market where you can go Toronto or nothing. Nothing for me, please. Just, I have no need to back Toronto at a 7.5, 8.5, 9 type of number. Money line would be okay, but again, paying nearly 400 on a meaningless game where like this Hornets team, rather, I just said it recently, like they're legitimately, their offense is being run by Seth Curry. That's all you need to know. This team's not winning games. And they have no desire to. The Lakers are taking the court in Dallas. Luka Doncic returns to the Dallas American Airways Arena, or whatever it's called. I actually think, let's talk environment for this game. I actually think the crowd is going to be massive Luka supporters. I think everyone in the building's going to want him to score 25 points at halftime. I think everyone in the building, well, it depends if Nico is there or not. I think all but one person in the building wants, besides the Mavericks sides, wants Luka to go off tonight. Seeing Luka get ejected in the fourth quarter of yesterday's game in one of the softest ejections I've ever seen. Ian says American Airlines Center. They should make it an arena and have it be a AAA. Come get your tires fixed at American Airlines Arena, AAA, sponsored by your best car insurance. Yeah, so Luka gets ejected in the fourth quarter with like 7 minutes left when the Lakers are up 1 against OKC. And then all of a sudden, OKC wins the next 7 minutes by damn near 20 points. And just cruises, covers any number. People who had a Lakers plus 15.5. I had this conversation with a guy named John yesterday who sent in that great live betting question, but we were still chatting a little bit yesterday about the Lakers versus OKC game and the line that moved from 9.5 to 14.5 to 15.5 back to 9.5. All that we care about is beating the closing line. So holding a 9.5 ticket was good. Hold, because it closed at like 9.5 with juice or 10, so you were slightly directionally okay. The people who played Lakers plus 15.5, those were by far the best tickets to have. By far the best tickets to have. And that is such a shitty, bad beat. In a night filled with weird, bad beats yesterday. I can talk about what we'll do. Christopher says after the games, you should touch on the Malone. Let's weave the Malone into the Denver-Sacramento game. Two teams that fired their coach this year. And then let's talk about how weird last night was at the end of the show. Rogers Burner says, Fiddle, how we doing? Rogers, I'm good as long as you play 0 parlays today. Like, that's why that'll make me great. How can I go from good to great? Is by choosing the right bet type and not placing dumb fucking bets. Nairobi says Lakers Mavs over 228. Yes, I played this at 227. We are now seeing it up to 228.5. Let's find the best number on the board. Definitely think Luka's going to play. You have to like almost be wondering who else is going to come down the pipeline. I'll pull up Ian's injury report for this game, but like, do we see Reeves? Do we see LeBron? Are one of them going to be out? Because if one of them are going to be out, then I understand the line coming back to 3.5. If they both end up playing, this line goes back to Lakers -5.5. I think we've understood that when the Lakers line was 15.5 against OKC, when they were perceived to be resting everybody, the Lakers line was 5.5 against the Mavericks the following night, right? So both games were priced in the back-to-back. You had the market completely pricing these guys as 80% going to rest and take that game off against OKC, and then 100% going to be playing the next night in Dallas. So we knew the numbers. We knew that this Lakers with LeBron, with Reeves active, should be 5.5. And so I'm really uncertain which the way those goes. I kind of think they're going to play and they're going to show up for Luka. We will see. Maybe one of them doesn't go. It would piss me off if Bron doesn't go. Bron is like an iconic teammate. So he got handshakes with everyone. He remembers the handshakes years later. So like, as an iconic teammate that Bron is, I expect this man to be playing. So Lakers maybe at 3.5 might actually have some value. Over at 228.5. At this point, you kind of need Reeves and LeBron to be in. But we are seeing Circa at 229, some offshores at 228.5, juiced to -115 to the over. There's one remaining 228 at Bookmaker. So, I mean, that's a pretty much a Vegas only shop that has offshores. Oh, Bet Rivers has a 228 as well. If you could find the flat 228, I would click the button now. If you're staring at best available option is 228.5. Caesars has -110, DraftKings -112, FanDuel -112. I would wait and get some news and then take the information before you take the worst possible line on that. Lakers can still move up if they win out. Yes, game definitely meaningful for both Lakers and Dallas. Darian says, my boy Bron is playing. I saw someone combine Bron and Luka Doncic and just call them Bronchich. And so you could only imagine what I was calling my dog Bronny on our walk last night. Come on, Bronchich. Let's go, Bronchich. We have a new name. Not Yanni and Bronny, it's Bronchich. Okay, let's go on to, so yeah, I think you could still play a 228 -112 Bet Rivers, and you could consider a Lakers -3.5. I do think LeBron plays. I do actually probably think Reeves plays too, and this line is going to be 5.5. No intel on it, just a hunch. Miami Heat are playing the Chicago Bulls. Drew's Zombie Bulls versus the Walking Dead version of the Miami Heat. I think it's a pretty fair matchup to put these two teams against each other. A very meaningful game for both teams as they sit in the play-in tournament in the Eastern Conference. It will matter for seeding stuff around this area. We are seeing lines move on the board right now. A full point of movement towards the under right now on the screen. Caesars going from 227 directly to 226. Still have a bunch of 227s on the board. I got a text earlier that says, how do you feel about Heat Bulls under 227? Didn't really have much of an opinion. So not surprising to still see the market take a little bit of under movement. It would be an under or nothing spot. Heat are going to limit possessions. They're going to play zone defense. How much can you really limit the possessions of a Chicago Bulls team that plays with electric pace? Bulls have a bunch of guys questionable for this game. So let me share that right now, because that will explain some of the line movement that we are seeing. Oh my God, it's a long injury report. This one took Ian 12 minutes to write, just the Miami Heat Chicago injury report. In Bam Adebayo, Alec Burke, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Heat side. Probable. You might as well consider these guys in. Josh Giddey, Kevin Huerter, Vooch, Kobe White, Haywood Highsmith also on the Heat. Andrew Wiggins, questionable. Doubtful. Lonzo Ball, out. Nikola Jovic, Kevin Love, Trey Jones. So Lonzo had a game where he was back recently, and now is back to out. The other guys have been out for a little bit. And so all the probables right here are mainly asymmetric risk towards the Bulls. But you have to understand the urgency and the injury history of these guys. They've all been listed probable and playing. So when these guys come out, they're on the injury report. The line opens. We're in Chicago. Chicago Bulls are, both teams actually have been playing well over the last month. It's not a surprise to see line movement towards the Bulls, because I expect these guys to be playing. So how much of is it sharps getting ahead of like an injury repricing situation? John says, saw Fiddle's face when Matt Moore said we're going to do a parlay. That one actually wasn't that bad. The one that he gave out on Buckets yesterday. It was genuinely fair odds for a same game parlay. And it was because the betting calculators deemed them as inversely correlated when I thought they were totally correlated, like Denver Nuggets against the spread, and I think it was Jalen Pickett's over PRA and the over in the game. I was like, that seems to be correlated, but it still gave out like pretty much true odds to any 3-leg parlay. And so if you're getting in that little correlation bonus, but not paying for it, and you're perceiving that to be a correlated angle that the book's not pricing in, sometimes those are small edges that you can, sometimes those are actually big edges that you can obtain, but you need to be really fucking good at like originating and knowing where these numbers should be and knowing where the market is ultimately going to end up to make it actually worth it. And for me, especially in the prop market, I'm not that guy. Portland Trailblazers take on the Utah Jazz. Does anyone want me to talk about this game? No? All right, we move on. Denver Nuggets taking on the Sacramento Kings in Sacktown. Light the beam, but don't, because Denver's winning tonight. Let's talk about why they fired Mike Malone. I have a theory. I think it also applies to the Grizzlies with Taylor Jenkins. I have a theory. Here it goes. Josh Kroenke. Actually, I had the theory. I had it when the Grizzlies made their move. I had it again when the Nuggets made their move. And then it was cemented when Josh Kroenke, in the ownership family, Stan Kroenke, Josh Kroenke, his son, part owner, family ownership group of the Denver Nuggets, goes on a interview, which is video streamed and is clipped all over. The actual Denver Nuggets Twitter account tweeted it out, where they said two things that like totally caught my attention. One of them was that wins were masking issues that the team was having, and that there were clear issues, but that they had like an 8-game win streak going into the All-Star break, and that was really masking a lot of issues, and that they knew that they were going to do it this summer. And so I actually had a moment of like, holy shit. What if the Nuggets knew they were going to fire Malone at the end of the season in the summer when they were ousted from the playoffs? The Grizzlies knew that they were going to move on from Taylor Jenkins after the season when they were ousted from the playoffs. We saw this with decisions in the assistant coaching staff at the Grizzlies level. Like, they were changing Jenkins' staff without his approval. They were getting rid of other guys. They were dictating who's going to run certain systems. Malone had a big voice in Denver, so if they were going to decide to move on, they would just had to completely move on. What if the only thing that would have prevented Denver from being able to swiftly and justly and with reason move on from Michael Malone, and the only thing that could have gotten the Grizzlies to swiftly and justly and without much drama get the Grizzlies to move on from Taylor Jenkins, the only thing that would actually stop that would be overachieving in the playoffs. and actually having a deep playoff run. What if the Nuggets made the finals? What if Jokic led the team to the finals, Murray's hamstring gets a little bit better, and Michael Malone's at the helm, but the whole team and the organization doesn't think it's like, oh, we believe credit is due Malone, but you reflect back and you're like, okay, that team just got to the finals. You don't fire the coach. What if the Grizzlies made the Western Conference Finals and you get to the summer and ownership and management wants to move on, but you can't because you just, or you look like Nico Harrison doing something where you probably shouldn't because the results say vastly otherwise. So I almost wonder if you need to get ahead of it in this situation and pull the plug before the playoffs, because honestly, the ownership must have been thinking, God forbid we actually make it to the finals. Now the team and the ownership could hope, yeah, we need to fucking press to the finals. And if that's the case, let's give David Adelman the job. Let's give Tomas Isola the job in Memphis. So, like, I understand it seemed to be toxic. I understand there was clashes between certain players and coaching and they weren't listening. I understand that there was problems between Calvin Booth and Michael Malone. But really, the reason to do it now, in my opinion, was because if you waited a month, 2 months, you might not get the opportunity because they did too well. And you might know we need to move on, but we can't in this situation. Some crazy line moves happening. Let's keep talking about these games. The Denver Nuggets take on Kings. Both teams have fired their coach this year. You don't really see a coach bump in the NBA upon firing a coach. The Kings lost Doug Christie's first game. The Grizzlies lost the first 3 games of Tomas Isola's debut with the Grizz. The Nuggets now move on from Malone. Do they get a new coach bump? You generally see that in football. You have a whole week. Coach gets fired on like Monday, right? Tuesday may be the off day, but then you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to practice, to prep, to get locked in, to do all your recovery stuff. And then you could show up Sunday laser focused. In the NBA, the schedule churns too fast to be able to realistically make a big coaching change and have it be impactful right away. Maybe it comes more practice time. Maybe they slowly start to implement new changes. It'd be really hard for Denver to do that this late in the season. The general only coach bump that you see is players that were questionable are more likely to be probable. Doesn't really apply to Jamal Murray because the last we heard from Michael Malone on Jamal Murray was that we hope he's ready for game 1 of the playoffs. We hope he's ready for game 1 of the playoffs. Like I don't think Jamal Murray's now coming back all of a sudden against Sacramento tonight. So Jamal Murray's doubtful, but I think that's going to be an out. I believe this is still an over spot and a Denver spot. At these numbers, I'd actually wait on both of these numbers because I think you'll get better ones. I think the number will come back down, potentially 2.5. I think the number will come back down, potentially 233.5. I played Denver Nuggets -2. I played Denver Nuggets over 232.5. So you can have my numbers to understand this. Darian says Sacramento's already locked into the play-in, so why force it? I believe Sacramento has seeding situations respective to these last few games. I believe they could. I don't know if they could climb up to 7 or 8, but they definitely can get or secure that 9-10 game at home. And so that's genuinely a big deal, especially when you're going against this Dallas team that actually looks decent. Nairobi, Timberwolves coach Chris Finch might be fired next, especially after what happened last night against the Bucks. We will definitely have to talk about what happened last night against the Bucks. Chris Finch is definitely not getting fired. I understand the sentiment around the league to just point the finger to the next guy. Finch is as safe as they could be. That would be a fun exercise. Who's actually the low-key coach on the hot seat somewhere? Jamal Mosley in Orlando? Quinn Snyder in Atlanta? Nick Nurse in Philly? Budenholzer in Phoenix? those would be the next places I point the fingers. Obviously, it looked disgusting for the Timberwolves last night. Finch ain't going anywhere. When the Wolves hired Finch, they got a lot of flack for it because they went mid-season and pulled him off of somebody else's bench. I got a phone call. I'm in. Thanks for the tip on OKC revenge spot. I did OKC -9 and SGA over 31.5. Cash those tickets. I'm in, but don't thank me for the tip. Thank that referee for going, Luka, you're ejected in the fourth quarter. Sacramento is only ahead one game from the Dallas. Why are so many people calling me? Relax. All right. Ian says Sacramento one game up on Dallas and Sacramento and has Clippers, Suns, Dallas, Raptors, Fizzlies over the next few games. Every win helps secure that number 9 seed for them. Thank you for that, Ian. All right. Let's move on off of... I'm outrightly blocking this caller right now. I don't know who it is. I'll unblock them in a bit, but y'all need to chill calling me 3 times in a row and getting the message ignored. I honestly, at this point, sometimes when that happens, I don't want there to be an emergency. But motherfucker, you call me 3 times within minutes, there better fucking be some sort of emergency. Yeah, I hope everyone's okay. All right. Moving on. The Spurs taking on the Warriors. Gross spread. Back-to-back spot for both of them. Really terrible beats on different numbers, various for both of them. I had a maybe lucky win or saved by having a good number on Warriors game and ended up coming ahead between these two games respectively. We see them both playing now, second night of a back-to-back. Total opened at 235 and played the under. Now it's at 231.5. Why would that be? 232 at Circa, 232 at Caesars, 231 flat at Bookmaker, 232 to the under might be playable. Now, why might that be on the second night of a back-to-back in a game that doesn't mean shit for the Spurs, in a game that does matter for the Warriors, but they're a 16.5 point favorite. They could probably win if a guy named Chef Curry, if a guy named Jimmy Butler, if one of those guys were to not play, I still think the Warriors would handle business. So I actually think that the line movement, 235 was the number that a model would generate if everyone played in this game. It would actually be lower because if you're depending on what sample size you're pulling. If you're pulling full season data, you're going to get Warriors without Jimmy. You're going to get Spurs with Wembanyama. So both numbers are going to be artificially too low. And then if you do your manual inputs to readjust, you'll get right to the number that it opened at. Made sense. However, 235 just prices everyone is in. And that didn't make sense for me. So there was some asymmetric risk to play towards the under. If those guys all play, then this line will pop back up to 235, 234.5. Maybe it'll be shaded towards the under because it'll be shaded towards a lower number because under money has come in. So maybe it goes to 234 so that the books can try and get some over money back on the handle and the liability. But given the asymmetric risk, given that, it was a no-brainer to still play 235 because you'd be okay with a 235 if Steph and Jimmy and Dre and Castle and CP3 and Harrison Barnes and they all play. So this is one of those spots where you always need to evaluate the injury report and say, where do we think this goes? It's why I follow every single beat writer on Twitter for every single team. It's why I've sent out the list of every single one of those names with all of those accounts hyperlinked. Cedric says, yo, lurkers, doubters, haters, stop calling Fiddle and hit the like button. We love you too. Yeah, would appreciate a like, would appreciate a comment on the show, especially on the YouTube channel. Definitely trying to continue to grow the YouTube channel. John says, San Antonio LA Clippers yesterday went over This was a game that should have been an under. Except the Clippers and the Spurs would score 70 points in the fourth quarter in a blowout game where they still scored once every 10 seconds. So despite it going over yesterday, definitely one of those anomalous finishes that should be thrown out and more so considered an under. That was the fucking a bullshit over, which you could probably hear from my voice. I was on the losing side of that one. All right. Golden State Warriors under might still be a play at 232. But again, you're then hoping that bilateral knee soreness or Jimmy Buckets decides to take a game off. The Oklahoma City Thunder are playing the Suns, the best team in the NBA versus the most painful watch I've seen in years. This Suns team has fucking quit. They're horrible. There are so many issues. That's why OKC is a 9.5 point favorite on the road. And wait till we even pull up the injury report for this game. Caruso, Dort, SGA, Hartenstein, Chet, Case and Wallace, Wiggins, Jalen Williams, all questionable. And they're still a 9.5 point favorite. Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Caleb Martin. Like, is KD going to come back? Ian, how many games do the Suns have left? 3? Do me a favor, Ian. Look up how many games. 3, I think he's showing me. Move your hand a little this way. Okay, cool. Yeah, 3. Kevin Durant is sitting on 62 games played for the season. And 3 games would make him get to 65, and he'd probably make all NBA. So are all of these guys going to sit because OKC doesn't give a hoot for this game? Is Kevin Durant going to come back because he wants to get an award? Does Kevin Durant not care about that stuff? I don't know. I kind of think at the end of the day, Kevin Durant doesn't care too much about getting all NBA this season. And I also kind of think a lot of these guys are going to end up sitting. Because what's the point for OKC here? The only thing is they don't have the number 1 seed in the entire NBA secured. They have the number 1 seed in the West secured. But technically, Cleveland can still get a better record in the full season. So if they were to meet Cleveland in the finals, I just still don't think that minute of a potential reason is enough to try and force the players to play second night of a back-to-back on the road with travel once it's already locked up and it's a week away. And like technically you still have the spot and the Suns teams fucking sucks. So listen, Case and Wallace plays. Wiggins was out yesterday, so maybe he's actually dealing with some stuff. A big Jalen Williams plays. But SGA, J-Dub, Hartenstein, Chet, Dort, Caruso, honestly, maybe every single one of them doesn't play. Nairobi says KD's been done with the Suns. I mean, yeah. Where should KD go? Miami? San Antonio? Minnesota? The Knicks? There's some great landing spots for KD. Houston? Great landing spots for KD. No one wants to see KD back in Phoenix. Get his ass out of there. The Houston Rockets are playing the Los Angeles Clippers. Last game on the card. Houston Rockets have secured the 2 seed. This becomes a Clippers and Clippers only spot. Line opened at 4.5. 4.5. Played it. Sent it out in the WHOP. Moved to 5.5 immediately. Immediately wrote back in the WHOP. You can still play 5.5. I just won't grade any of these tickets. So when we show the WHOP bets in a second, you're not going to see any Clippers stuff. Yes, I bet the Clippers, but it moved in 2 seconds. It's one of those spots where a few, in the rare instance, where the WHOP bets will differ from my actual action, because it'd be ludicrous to count that as a 2-unit play, which by the time I maybe clicked enter, it moved to 5.5. Then I still wrote, yeah, cool to play 5.5 if you want. You now see it at 8.5. Clippers or nothing. This game is meaningless to the Rockets. Congratulations to the Rockets on securing the 2 seed. It is the second night of a back-to-back for Los Angeles. However, they were without Kawhi Leonard last night. And so Harden, very durable, has always played the 2-leg back-to-back. Zubac, very durable, has always played the second night back-to-backs. It's generally Kawhi Leonard that we worry about, and he's going to play. Şengün questionable, Jabari Smith questionable, Fred VanVleet doubtful. So maybe you get some injuries that hit Houston, and really they just take their foot off the gas here because they have locked up the 2 seed in the West. The reason why Houston locked up the 2 seed in the West is because the Lakers lost last night, which because Luka was ejected. Trust the process 34. Thank you for being here. How much higher do you think the Magic spread goes, assuming the Celtics rest most or all of the starters? That's a great question. It's hard to say. I think this is already pricing in a vast majority of them sitting because we've seen the spread move from Celtics -3 to Magic -6. There has been 9 points of movement in the spread. So do a little math and forecasting about what player values are and then compare it to what the information was yesterday. We had Kristaps Porzingis playing yesterday, and we knew he was not going to play the second night of a back-to-back in a meaningless one. So essentially count Kristaps Porzingis, despite being Porzingis is fully priced in as out. So it's really, you're wondering where of the 9 points are Holiday, Brown, White, Tatum distributed? And is there still more room to go if they're going to be out? It's a Magic or nothing spot. For me, it's a nothing. The Magic have not been a team that I could trust enough. And I still think a Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, Baylor Shireman type of outing, like they might just put up a ton of fucking threes. And it could just be a shooting efficiency night. I'd almost would consider if they all get ruled out and the Celtics are 9.5 point dogs, I would consider a Celtics money line in that spot, just breaking into game theory optimal coaching from Missoula that they're just going to hunt the 3-point line. And if they're hot, give me that. If it's plus 440 or whatever, give me that, 1 out of every 5 times you'd win. You'd be profitable. John asked a question about live betting situations at certain points in games. All of those are really situational stuff. It is hard for me to answer. And I'm also not that much of a live bettor because I'm so fixated on pregame markets that I'm fucking exhausted by the time the live screens are on. And then I generally just would prefer to do some arbing. And if I'm going to do live betting stuff, I'll do some arbs. But I'm not really looking for much live action throughout a slate. Trust the process. Good analysis. Sub to the channel. Thank you. Who's the 34 for? Is that a Giannis 34? Is that a Shaq 34? Is that someone on the 76ers that we're trusting the price? Is Joel 34? Let us know. All right. What did we want to do? We need to do the over-under 1.5 shots for bet stamp. We need to do the WHOP bets. And do we want to even bother talking about last night's bad beats? Trust the process says it's Giannis who's the 34. That's the right choice of any 34. Well done. I'll sub to your channel too. Okay. We don't really need to talk about the bad beats from yesterday. Fuck it. Get over it. Do you guys hear Bronny? What's your opinion on arbitrage betting? Betting 2 different lines that are plus 105 at the same time and one of them automatically wins and one of them automatically loses. What's the problem with that? Love arbitrage betting. It's not really betting. Arbitraging is not really betting. Arbitraging is winning money if done right. In fact, opening middles is just another form of arbitraging because the value of said things at respective prices means you're betting into a negative hold, which is essentially the same thing as arbitraging. But when you're doing middles, technically you could lose one side of the position and win another side and technically still end up losing a little bit of money. But long-term, it's essentially the same thing, betting into a negative hold. And so love betting into low holds. If you go check out the Masters podcast, we talked about hold and rake rate of books and how that affects edges. And so those are very, very important things that I'm always considering. Good question. 1.5 shots for bet stamp. Fuzzy screen. Oh, felt terrible right away. Don't have it today. I'm like the Wolves in the fourth quarter. Blowing it. That'll do it for today. Thank you to everybody for being here. Please rate, review, subscribe on the podcast feed. If you're on the YouTube channel, please drop a like, drop a comment, come back after and comment on the stream. All of those things would help so much. We're trying to grow the YouTube channel. Make sure that you are back here tomorrow, same time, as I will be joined by Raheem Palmer. Make sure you check out the Masters betting preview on the audio feed if you are a golf bettor. And I will be back on Friday and on Sunday. Mark your calendar. Sunday, we will be doing a live show, 15 games, every single team playing, ton of seating spots. There will be a lot of actionable angles on Sunday's card. I will be joined by J Money is Money for that. So a lot to look forward to this week on the show. If you want all of my picks in real time as I'm sending them out, those are the WHOP bets. You can sign up for the WHOP. That is linked in the YouTube description. That will be linked in my Twitter bio and in the podcast feed as well. Trying to show the WHOP bets overlay. Here we go. Here were the 7 different positions sent out for tonight. Lakers -4.5. Skip that. That was when we were trying to get well ahead of the OKC news. Over 227 is now at 228.5. Denver Nuggets -2 is at 3 or 3.5. The over 232 is at 234.5. I still like Denver. I still like the over, but I still think if you wait it out, you might get a 2.5 and a 233.5. So I'm not ready to play into the worst numbers now. Golden State Warriors, San Antonio Spurs under 234.5. 235 was even available when I sent that out. It's down to 231.5 and prices in a lot of injury uncertainty. You can consider the under 232 available at Caesars. Boston, Orlando under 215.5, 2 units. And I had that 3-point middle live on the screen. So that's essentially a version of arbitraging, is playing the over 212.5 and the under 215.5 at the same time. However, hit the under with more authority, considering the asymmetric risk going into a meaningless Boston game. So we see that total down to 206. 206, 9 points of movement towards the under. A really great card. Nairobi says, I appreciate you. John says, WHOP bets. Got you both. Thank you guys for being here. See you tomorrow. Some words from Patrick Beverley as we say peace out. And he says, y'all subscribe to my podcast while you're asking me all these questions.
Y'all subscribe to my podcast while y'all asking all these questions. Don't forget to subscribe to the pod. And if you're a kid, listen to your parents. Listen to your parents.
Listen to your parents.
Subscribe to the pod.
Subscribe.
Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the pod.